What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Welcome, everybody. I am Love Coach Scott Katamas, and this is a very special, spontaneous evening of compassionate communication. Now, you saw in the awakening world that it's all about relationships between ourselves and the planet. And a great teacher said, life is relationship. And if you want to change your life, change your relationships. And when I first heard that, it really changed my life. I went from Scott, the writer, director, producer guy, to Scott, a coach, and eventually Love Coach Scott. And so welcome. We're going to be answering some questions about compassionate communication, maybe doing a little bit of coaching. We've got some great coaches with us, actually, including the co-founder of Love Coach Academy, one of my dearest friends in the world. This is Katrina Valancourt.
Great to be here. I so love teaching with you, Scott. So it's wonderful to have another relationship mastery coming up starting this Saturday. It's been a long time since we've come together and really done a deep dive into the tools of Love Coach Academy. So I'm delighted. It ends up being just the sweetest community love bubble I've experienced when we do these courses together.
It is true. It's all about community. And so one of the things when we teach these courses, and we tonight definitely want to answer questions, do a little coaching with people that want to be coached. And we're going to be pitching you to join our course, which is going to be starting this Saturday. And it's every Saturday morning for 12 weeks. And some of the people who are doing the course are with us tonight. And it's the first time I've taught my course in 2 years. When the pandemic hit, I was just completing a round of actually mentorship training and teaching my course. And then I got very involved with Global Peace Tribe, Saturday Night Alive. My coaching practice went through the roof because so many people were struggling in relationships. And I kept putting off, because I used to teach this course 2 or 3 times a year, and I kept putting it off. Anyway, finally it's happening. And I'm really delighted that Katrina is going to be co-facilitating with me, as well as a couple of other coaches, one of who's in the house, and I'm going to bring her up just because I'm so excited to see her. This is Teresa, who is an amazing coach, a really wonderful coach. And so it's the first time I've seen her in, I think, about 2 years. So hi, Teresa.
Hello, everybody. I'm so delighted to see so many familiar faces here and dear friends. And my gosh, Scott, Katrina, I mean, it's just been so long. So I'm supercharged and super excited to be here. I can't even tell you, I feel like I have permagrin. My cheeks are hurting right now.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. So definitely want to encourage people to utilize the chat box. And I will also, if people have questions and they want to be on camera, great. If you don't want to be on camera, that's okay. Just say, here's a question and keep it anonymous. But I'm going to just start while, we wait. I'll also be checking in on what's happening. I see we've got about 25 people watching on Unify and about a dozen on Love Coach Academy. So I'll be checking those as well. I'm going to put the full spotlight on you for a moment, Katrina, because I'd love for you to share how compassionate communication, also known as nonviolent communication, has impacted your life.
Oh, goodness. I tell people I'm just so deeply passionate about this work because it's absolutely transformed my life in every possible wonderful way. There's a bit of wow. There's like an area of life of what you don't know and you don't know that you don't know it. That really makes a difference. And for me, nonviolent communication was absolutely that. When I first met Scott 16 years ago, I was in a really difficult situation. I was struggling as a single mom. I had really poor communication with my ex-husband. We couldn't last 15 minutes without going into some kind of escalation and fighting, ending up in tears and anger, and it was having a horrible impact on my son. I'd also been dealing with custody challenges. Scott supported me with nonviolent communication to arrange for my son to be living with me Monday through Friday, and then he was going to be with his dad on the weekends. And I hadn't had my son living with me during the week for 4 years at that time. It had been tearing my heart apart. And I thought that having my son back, like things would just magically get better, right? I'd have my son in my life again. And so it was very, very, very difficult for me when I had the experience on a daily basis of my son wrapping his body around my leg, right? Sitting on my foot, wrapping his body around my leg. And then he would look up at me and he would scream, "I hate you. I hate you. I want to live with my dad." And he'd scream like that for about a half hour until, he got all his angst out of him. And then he'd go on and do his thing. And my nerves were shot. And I had no idea what to do. But what I did know was that the nonviolent communication practices that I was experiencing with Scott and other people in our shared community were creating what I would call small miracles of love. And I didn't quite know how they were happening, but I knew that it was nonviolent communication, and I wanted to learn. One of the pieces that I came to understand is super important is needs awareness, something called needs awareness. And at the time, it seemed like a psychic skill to me. And what I came to understand is that people who are really good at needs awareness and giving empathy to be able to reflect back my feelings and needs or another person's feelings and needs, they could do it because they had immediate access to a vocabulary that I didn't have. At the time, if you asked me, how was I feeling? I'd just start crying and I'd say, I don't know. I'm sad. I'm frustrated, but beyond that, I can't tell you what I'm feeling and what I need. It's too much. And so I came to discover something that became such a gift for me and catapulted my ability to practice nonviolent communication in my life. And what I discovered was that if I used cards, I could do empathy just like anyone else could. It was a little slower in the beginning, but it was very effective. So I made myself my own cards. They're kind of like flashcards. And I created this incentive with my son where every time he played a game with me using these cards, he'd get a point. And when he got 100 points, I would buy him the video game of his choice. He was super motivated by that. So one day he had a couple friends over and it was dinner time. And I said, it's time for them to go home. We're going to have dinner. And I could tell he was getting really upset and he was about to throw one of those fits, right? I could feel the energy coming towards me. And I said, would you like to earn a point? And he says, yes. I said, great. So for the first point, I'm just going to guess what it is you might be feeling, right? I'm going to flip through these cards and I'm going to guess what it is you might be feeling. And I imagine that he was probably feeling bored and frustrated and lonely and impatient and sad. There were a number of emotions that I put down, and I asked him, is this what you're feeling? And he says, yes. I said, great. Would you like another point? And he says, yes. I said, okay, so now I'm just going to guess what it is you really want right now. And so I flipped through these cards here, and I guessed that he really wanted to have friendship and play and choice and fun and consideration. So again, there were a number of cards that I put down. And I said, is this what you really want right now? He goes, yes. I said, great. Would you like another point? And he said, yep. I was motivated by the video game. I said, okay, so for the next 2 points, why don't you take these same 2 sets of cards and see if you can guess what I'm feeling and what I want right now. I made this game 100 points because I thought it was going to take a while for my son to understand how to do this. And so it really surprised me. I was sitting behind him as he was flipping through the cards. And, he's putting down sad, frustrated, heavy-hearted, disappointed, stressed. He's putting down all the emotions I'm feeling. And then he's flipping through the needs cards, and he's putting down cooperation, fairness, choice, love. When he put that love card down, I had tears falling from my eyes. Wow, my son gets me. So he completes putting the cards down, and he turns to me to see how did he do. And he sees the tears streaming down my face. He says, Mommy, are you okay? And I said, yes. Thank you so much for understanding what's going on in me. And he said, Mommy, I love you. He wrapped his arms around me and gave me the sweetest hug. And those fits stopped overnight. My son's now 24. We only pulled out the cards for our conflict 2 other times. So there were many, many other games that I had to create: gratitude games, character development games, games that helped him resolve conflict with other people. And it just became this amazing way that I was teaching myself some of the most foundational tools of nonviolent communication, which is a huge piece of what we do in Love Coach Academy. Love Coach Academy has many other tools as well. And nonviolent communication is a very significant piece of it. So that was what really catapulted my learning of this tool set. And, from there, of course, Scott and I have been teaching for a number of years and developed this beautiful experience called Love Coach Academy. And we're sharing this out of a sense of passion. Of course, everything that I got to do with my son supported me in every single relationship I have. I was applying it, of course, with my friends and my family members, coworkers, and then, over time it became classrooms and clients. And so it's just been a natural expression. And again, just absolutely my passion to share it. So I'm so grateful to be sharing it with all of you right now.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. Thank you so much. I'm going to share a little bit about love coaching because a lot of the people who take our course are interested in expanding their ability to coach, whether it's personally, just as friends, or professionally. A lot of people that have been making their living as body masseuses or different forms of caregiving gather from it. But it's also for people who just want to have better relationships. But I want to share how I start when I'm working with a couple, because this is a good insight as to what love coaching is. People say, well, what's the difference between love coaching and traditional therapy? Well, here's the difference. In traditional therapy, that therapist, God bless them, has spent years learning how to evaluate and diagnose what's wrong with you. And usually in a therapy session, a couple comes in and right away they get into what did he say, what did he do, what is wrong, and they go into diagnosing and evaluating all the problems. And there's a room for that. However, in love coaching, we don't believe anybody is broken. We don't believe that there's anything wrong with anyone. We do not diagnose. We do not evaluate. We help people remember their divinity. And when I'm working with a couple, I won't get into any of the hard stuff until they're back into connection with each other. So I don't start off with what's the problem. I start off with having them eye gaze and remember moments where they felt really well loved and cared for by the other. I ask them, what are some of the character strengths and virtues that you admire in the other? Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes people go there quickly. And sometimes it's hard because there's so much pain. And that shows me, okay, we really have to give a lot of empathy to the pain that's getting in the way of even being able to say, I so admire his confidence. I so respect her, how she is with the kids, whatever it might be. But it's all about coming back to love, because almost always the couples I work with, deep down, they're in pain in direct proportion to the love that they're missing. And I'll tell any of you who are watching, any relationship that you're in pain around, even if it's somebody you haven't seen or spoken to in a long time, the pain you feel is in direct mathematical proportion to the love you're missing, the love you want to have with that person, either love that you've had or that you long for. And that's where we go in love coaching. We go there. We go into the beauty of our longings, the beauty of what we really long for. We don't focus on what the other person said or did that was wrong or bad. We may, at a certain point when we're connected, drop into understanding the impact and understanding why that person said or did what they did. I'm not a big believer in forgiveness right off the bat. It's a sweet concept, but much more powerful than forgiveness, and what's really necessary for true forgiveness, is mutual understanding. Because he did that for a reason, and it impacted her in the way that it did. And if we can look at it objectively, he was so desperate, she was so hurt. And we don't look at it from the right, wrong, good, bad, but just how perfectly human that in his desperation, he said or did that thing. And in her hurt, she reacted and said or did that thing. I've had many couples. A couple I'm working with tonight, as a matter of fact. I've got a late session with a couple in Australia. And it's dealing with trust and infidelity. And again, same thing. When one person has made a choice that's had a hurtful impact, we don't condone the choice, but we also don't go into judgment of it. We drop into understanding why they made that choice and feeling the impact it had on the other. That's love coaching. And that's what we learn in our course. We learn how to self-reflect. We learn the skills of compassionate communication and emotional intelligence and neuro-linguistic programming. So I'm going to bring Katrina back up because we do have a couple of comments and questions here. And this first one is actually a good one for you, Katrina. Omashar, who's with us, who we love, Omashar is a beautiful part of Global Peace Tribe, writes, I have a separation from my 14-year young daughter, and I feel I've buried my emotions so that I can carry on. I'm looking how to unearth these buried emotions, face them, and work through them. And I'm curious, Omashar, would you like to come on camera and talk with us about it directly? Are you comfortable with that?
Sure, whatever. It's all good. We're family. Nothing hidden.
Oh, well, thank you, Omashar. Thank you for sharing that. And when I talked about the part of the pain that you feel being in direct proportion to the love that you're missing, can you relate to that?
Holy smoke, absolutely. Because in a nutshell, I was Mr. Mum for my daughter from when she was about 3 till 10, about 70% of the time. And then at 10, she basically said to her mum, I want to go and live with you. This is like almost about 2 years ago. And then from that moment onward, she she shut the door completely, and so did her mother, 100%. Blocked me on every level, and so I had no recourse, no one to talk to, nothing, and I was just left with this insane grief for a year. I'd come home from work. I was a landscape gardener in Hawaii, and I come home from work and just bawl my eyes out. I just didn't know what to do. It was like, rah! And this went on for a year. So I basically, at the end of the year, I kind of closed the door on that emotion. And I still have no communication with my daughter today. After being so close, Mr. Mum for 7 years, 8 years. And it's not a sob story, but it's like the proportion of grief to the absolute intimacy that I had with my daughter was exactly what you just said. So there it is. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing. And, for anybody who shares, we're in no rush. We're going to just kind of be present. And I want to acknowledge the incredible grief, and to be that close and then have her pulled away at that age, and to not know what she's being told, what she thinks, to not be able to interact with her. That's incredibly difficult, Amashar. Incredibly difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I try not to, I've been trying to relate it to my adult relationships and how did this happen and why and this, that, and the other. But I had to let it go because the grief was pulling me down. And I'm such a being of light and positivity and awesome sharing and everything. And it was shutting those aspects of me down. So I just kind of closed the door on it and continued on. And, because I have all the metaphysical tools in the universe to use. However, there's the grief thing that just pressed a button and just the my root chakra opened and all my energy just dumped into the earth, let's say. I don't know how to talk about it. So, yeah.
Katrina, do you have any thoughts? Or
You do. Of course, I totally understand that feeling of grief when somebody's gone and you have no access to them, whether it's through something that you're like what you're going through, or whether they've left the body and they're just no longer physically on planet Earth. It can be incredibly difficult when somebody we love is not accessible. And one of the really precious unmet needs there is for connection. And with that, the need for love.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I have found can be most helpful with that is to have a relationship with the person on an energy field, to write letters, to create art, to, if you're a musician, you are a musician, actually, I heard before.
I like your piano.
To write songs, right? To create and allow that grief to become the inspiration of love, to, make it into an art piece and multiple art pieces that express the love that's there, express the connection that's there. And at times it'll weave in pieces of mourning as well. And just allow that to flow through your creative expression. Create a file where you put the letters that you write to her, and allow yourself to feel that too. Allow yourself to feel the love.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
I also have a thought to definitely take time to grieve and to feel your pain. Don't stuff it, because when we stuff our pain, it can reside in the body, and we can then have physical issues.
Yeah, it manifests. I understand. Yes.
So allow yourself to feel the pain, and allow yourself to feel the love. Allow yourself that. My wife died almost 11 years ago, and I still miss her terribly. And here's the word that helps me that I want to share with you. The word is bittersweet. It's bitter that she's not in your life right now. And so we take time to acknowledge the bitterness. It's bitter that my wife is gone. It's sweet that I miss her. It's sweet that I still have that love and those memories. And so I invite you to experience the bitter sweetness of this chapter with your daughter, tasting the bitter, but remembering the sweet. And also remember, you two will reconnect. There will be a time, all children, always, the inner child always wants to love mommy and daddy. Always. Now, the rebellious teenager can override that for a while, and the angry adult can override that. But the inner child of all of us always wants to love mommy and daddy, and always wants to have it be good with mommy and daddy. And there will be a time where that part of her will want to be with you, will want to see who you are, will want to heal, will want to resolve. It will happen. And so hold the vision for it. Look forward to that beautiful day. And until then, eat the bittersweet ice cream.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Vanilla with cayenne pepper. Nice one. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring Eliza up. She's got a question for us. Where is she? There she is. Hi, Eliza. It's so good to see you.
You too.
Took our class a couple times, took Relationship Essentials.
Yeah.
And it's good to see you again in Lafayette, down in the South.
Yes. Yeah.
What's up? How can we help you?
So the situation is that yesterday, I've been in a fairly new relationship with a man about 6 months now, and it's wonderful. My insecurities keep getting in the way, for sure. I mean, I recognize that that's what's happening. And so there was a thing that happened. The thing that happened yesterday was that I called him and said, hey, it was a beautiful Sunday. And called him and said, hey, would you like to, I knew he had class and it would in around 2. I said, would you like to come and hang out with me for the rest of the day or for some part of the day after your class is over? And he said, well, let me call you when it's over. And he did. And he said, so do you need me to come over? Like, are you needing time with me, or are you uncomfortable about something? He asked if there was something that I needed from him in that moment. And I was like, no, I just wanted to hang out with you. And he's like, well, I really have other things that I would prefer to do. That's not how he said it. He said, I really have other things. That's what I heard. That's not what he said. He said, I really have other things that I need to do. And what I heard was that, he has things he'd prefer to do. And I was very upset with the situation, with what he said, because I realized later on in the evening when I was sort of sitting with myself on it, I realized I wanted him to go, oh my God, I get to hang out with Eliza. Let me drop everything and go running over there. And that's not what happened. And so I'm really struggling with the hurt that I feel that I don't feel I have a right to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has a right to say no.
My first thought, if I may, is you have every right to feel whatever you're feeling. So feel the disappointment, feel the sadness, and practice feeling it without making him wrong, right? It's okay to have uncomfortable feelings, and we don't have to make the other person wrong because of those uncomfortable feelings. And that's a big part of relationship is being able to be present to each other's present to our own discomfort and own it, acknowledge it, and then be present to each other's discomfort. And it's okay that you were disappointed. It didn't meet your value for connection, mutuality, right? The feeling wasn't mutual in that moment. Didn't meet your value for being adored. I so want to be adored. I have a dog, so I'm used to being adored. So it's okay to feel those things. Just don't make him wrong in the process. Katrina, anything you want to?
Sure. Eliza, I love that you were able to catch that he said he has other things he needs to take care of, and that you heard he has other things he would rather do, or that he would prefer to do. I love that you caught that, because so often people only hear what they hear and they erase what was actually said. So I first of all just wanted to appreciate you for having that awareness. And then the other piece that arose for me was recognizing that disappointment goes hand in hand with having expectations, right? So anytime we make a request, do you have an expectation that he's going to say yes? Right?
For sure.
Right. So it's important to notice when we have expectations and just go, okay, is this expectation really serving me and us or not? Take time to notice your expectations, because unchecked expectations will lead to disappointment. We're going to have times when people let us down. We're going to make requests and they're going to say no. And our commitment is that we're going to make requests and not demands, that we're seeking to really embody this work of compassionate communication. And so I just wanted to bring that piece in as well, is to, take some time and really go, okay, what are my expectations? And what do I want to hold on to tightly here? Because I deeply value it. And this is what I need in my relationship. And what am I willing to hold on to more loosely?
Thank you.
Was that any of those suggestions helpful for you?
Extremely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm sorry.
I have one last one. And I want to acknowledge that this is something that Katrina and I learned from a wonderful man named Robert Gonzalez, who just recently passed away. And Robert taught us about the beauty of the unmet need. Now, you're already hearing us, and you're going to hear us talk a lot about how everything we do is driven by universal human needs. You could also call them longings, desires, values. So when we have an unmet need, we have a tendency to focus on it not being met, and then sometimes go to make wrong, or what's wrong with me, what's wrong with him. But we can dive underneath it and just drop into the beauty of your longing. And so, kind of similar to what I said to Omashar, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be hurt. And don't let go of the beauty of your longing for connection. The beauty of your longing for mutuality. The beauty of the longing that, hey, I'd love it if my guy, was as into wanting to see me as I want to see him. That's a beautiful longing. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting it. And so just like I don't want you to ever blame him for choosing to take care of business or do what he did, I don't want you to ever blame or shame yourself for the beauty of your longing. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for coming up. It's so good to see you.
You too.
Thank you. All right, we have wonderful Stephanie has a great thing to bring up. And let me see, where are you, Stephanie? There you are. I'm adding you here. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this and for having us.
Yeah.
So I am committed to co-creating united love as a concept, as tangibility in my life, but also in our world, in partnership with life and our world. So I'm trying to work on myself first. And I just came to the realization that there's an area of my life that, so I tried to live my life in unconditional love. And I'm realizing that at times, without intending it, I've been a bit of maybe a bit of a doormat. And so what I realized was, wait a second, there's an entire different aspect here that I'm aiming for now, which is, what could powerful, eyes wide open, unconditional love look like in the face of anything? So that's my first question. And I don't have the answers. And so I'm putting it out there because I feel like these times on the planet, I feel like that's what we're all being invited to step up to. I feel like actually that's what it's all about. I feel like that's exactly what this time on the planet is, an opportunity to up-level the unconditional love and what eyes wide open, powerful, unconditional love could look like in every area of life. So the other thing that I realized was, could that look like if I think about that in terms of even like eyes wide open, powerful, unconditional compassion and gratitude and, openness and truth and courage. Like, so I just came to a realization in the last 24 hours. This is what landed on my paper. I realized, wow, it could be absent, or conditional, or it could be unconditional, or it could be powerfully unconditional inaction, so even compassion. So I'm realizing, wow, there's an entire up leveling that this is open like a whole new ceiling for me to be aiming for now. But I'm looking for examples. It's like, wow, I don't know how much unconditional love that's been powerful, eyes wide open, expressive, has been modeled to me in my life. And I don't know how much of that I've experienced myself. So I'm putting this question out to the world, and this feels like a perfect place to be asking. So those are a couple of facets of these questions that would very much welcome any and all of the above.
Thank you, Stephanie. Can I tackle it first, Katrina?
Go for it.
So, unconditional love that's a big one. And so let's take some baby steps first. And actually, what I'm about to say is not a baby step, it's a challenging step. But a step that we all can take towards creating greater love in our lives is to notice when we are creating enemy images and to discipline ourselves not to do that. What does that look like? Anytime somebody does something we don't like, and we go, what an asshole, what a jerk, what a bitch. Or when we do something that we're embarrassed about or we don't meet our own values, I'm such an idiot. God, I'm such a jerk. Notice if any of you watching still use words like that. Every time we do that, we are escalating a situation and we are creating an enemy image. And it's an act of violence. That's why Marshall calls it nonviolent communication. And it's a really important step to notice when we do that and to recognize, to start practicing seeing the, whatever you want to call it, eternal beloved, God, love in all beings. Now, that doesn't mean we have to condone choices that people make. Our problem with a person is not with who they are as a divine being. Our problem is with a choice that they've made or a behavior that they have that doesn't meet our values. Escalating it by making an enemy image out of them, by seeing them as a jerk or as whatever our negative word might be, is escalating it. But it's like, wow, I really noticed that the choice that person just made doesn't meet my value for honesty, doesn't meet my value for compassion or for care or for kindness. And again, we pivot into the beauty of the value that that's not being met by that person's choice or behavior. And that really turns us around. The other piece is learning to set boundaries with compassion. And I heard you earlier, Stephanie, say that sometimes, you could be a pushover, I think is the word you used, or a doormat. And kind, loving people, which is probably everybody watching this, we tend to attract kind, loving, compassionate people, often have trouble setting boundaries because they want to be kind, loving, and compassionate. I want to be unconditionally loving. People who want to be unconditionally loving sometimes have a challenge setting boundaries. And boundaries are healthy, not walls, boundaries. A boundary lets a person know what the playing field is. A boundary creates safety. A boundary creates an opportunity for us to know where we stand. Boundaries are wonderful things. And I'm going to just really quickly, and then turn over to Katrina, give a couple of steps of how to create boundaries with compassion. I call it make a boundary sandwich. The first thing we do is we provide authentic reassurance that we care. So I'm going to use Elizabeth's example. Ideally, her boyfriend, the next time she says, hey babe, I'm free, you want to come over? And he's got to really focus on something else, he creates a boundary sandwich with her. He leads with, oh babe, thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you for the invitation. And I love you, and I love my time with you. He's establishing that he cares about her. He's establishing appreciation for the request. But he still stays with the boundary. He doesn't change it. And I'm already committed to what I'm doing tonight. I'm really committed to my work, or being with my son, or watching the ball game, whatever it is. He's committed to that. But then the final piece of the boundary sandwich is being present to Elizabeth's discomfort. I do want to know how you're feeling. Are you hurt? Are you disappointed? And if you are, it's okay. I'd like to hear more. And we give that person the gift of presence to their disappointment, presence to their hurt. We don't defend ourselves, and we don't change our boundary or our choice, but we acknowledge, yeah, oh babe, you really want to see me. That's so cool. And I love you. And I really look forward to seeing with you tomorrow or Friday night or whenever it's going to be. So we create boundary sandwiches. So I'm going to bring Stephanie back up and Katrina, and I'm just curious how that lands for you. I'll bring up Elizabeth too for a minute, just since I used you as an example. If your boyfriend had done the boundary sandwich, how would that have gone for you? And you're muted.
I can tell you right now, just hearing you say it and kind of putting that in my headspace, had he it feels warm, like it feels there's a being seen, of being heard, of being understood, that I feel there, and it feels really good. I don't know that I would have walked away from it going like, that was great, but I still would have, but I definitely would have not been so upset with the situation. Yeah. Thank you for that. I love it. Love it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Stephanie, you wanted some reflections before I share my piece. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I really appreciate that example. And I think that setting boundaries in a comfortable way that's really genuinely reflective of where I'm at with things, where I am just standing in being centered in love and standing in my truth and speaking my truth. These are skills that I want to, cultivate growth in further. I just appreciate that modeling. So yes, that was really nice. One of the things that I came to realize more recently is, wow, this feels like an opportunity. Like, I get excited when I notice if I've had a blind side to something, because I'm really into, okay, I want to find it all and, cultivate everything I need to just be a presence of love and to be my fullest and in highest service. So I realized somebody had used the term pink rhino instead of the pink elephant. The thing that's in the center of the room that's coming right at us, that most everybody knows about and barely anybody speaks about and barely anybody does anything about. And so, just really realize that that's a great blindsight opportunity to explore, personally, but I think planetary wise, so even communally, I think we have a lot of that happening on the planet. So I wondered, what is unconditional, what is powerful, eyes wide open, unconditional love in action look like, or unconditional compassion look like in the face of pink rhinos, anything else that might typically go unspoken, and cultivating skills in establishing boundaries at an individual level, but how do we do that at a societal level?
Yeah, These are huge questions, and I love that you're asking them with such a passion. It's really expressing your heart, like how deeply you care. So first of all, just wanted to acknowledge how beautiful that is and how touched I am by your question. And I hear you asking on so many different levels, right? We have our relationship to ourself. What does love look like when I'm relating to myself? And then we might have relationship with this person or that person, but there's one-on-one relationships we have. So that's a different level or layer of relationship. And then there's groups. We've got our family group, we've got our work group, we've got maybe a religious or spiritual group or our Love Coach Academy group. We've got that dynamic, right? Which is again, another level. And then there's a larger society, right? Might be the town I live in or the state I'm in or the country I'm in. And then there's the global, right? And when you're talking about some of this rhino in the room, if we were to put out one of the many catastrophic risks that we're looking at as a humanity right now, or many people are not looking at, there are a number of rhinos as well. And so there's so many different layers or levels to really inquire into when we're looking at what is this united love. So I just want to acknowledge this is a huge, huge question, and I love that you're asking it. And being that it's a huge question, we could probably spend the next year really deep diving into how this all works. For sake of seeking to do something shorter, I wanted to share some of the resources that I pulled together for this call. This is one that I find really brings some great clarity into some basic communication choices that we have. So in nonviolent communication, we talk about jackal and giraffe. And jackal is the part of us that's conditioned to be reactive, judgmental, self-protective, in a win-lose dynamic or power over, power under. And so on that jackal side, we can see behavioral choices such as blaming, accusing, judging, shaming, not owning personal responsibility, adding perceptions as truth, making evaluations, analysis, diagnosing, labeling, holding resentments, complaints, making demands, being aggressive, passive. That's about half the stuff on the jackal side. And then on the other side, the giraffe side, we have what is it to be, like, how can I be responsible for my own feelings, needs, and actions, fully responsible? How can I make really clear observations that describe a situation without judgment or evaluation? So there's clarity. How can I practice empathy and forgiveness? How can I make really clear requests? How can I assert myself? Oftentimes being a doormat, we're not actually choosing to assert ourselves. And I was very professionally a doormat prior to learning these skills. So I can relate to that state. Stating our own preferences, having dialogues with people, as opposed to a monologue or silence, being inclusive. So these are choices that are all part of the answer of how can I be loving in relationship. And the more people that take these behaviors on, the more we start to resolve problems in society. So that's one piece. And then another one, this is one that we've often used in Love Coach Academy. And when we teach, it's very similar. We've got kind of the jackal in that clouded area on the left, giraffe in terms of the character strengths on the right. And I'm not going to go through this whole sheet, but what I did want to point out is what's at the heart of this sheet, which is a quote from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who's the founder of Nonviolent Communication. And what he says is, at the heart of every behavior is the desire to meet a precious need. So all those jackal behaviors, they're also attempts to meet precious needs. This is why needs consciousness is so important. If we have needs consciousness, then we can start looking at how we can meet needs. And these are the universal needs here. How we can meet needs in ways that support life, in ways that support love. So my short answer to this really big question that you've posed is that in order for us to be living in a unified love, it's super important that we are very attentive and aware to our own needs and very attentive and aware to the needs of those around us. And we're striving in every situation to create a win-win outcome, not only with other human beings, but with animals, plants, the ecosystem, all of life. The more people we have who move into this consciousness and seek to really hold this whole body of needs with care and consideration, really strive to uplift life through attentiveness to these needs, that's where the solutions start happening. Because that's a raise in consciousness. It's a shift in consciousness that creates a level of workability we've never seen on the planet.
Thank you for sharing those amazing documents, many of whom you've created. Most of those you've created yourself, and they're beautiful. And by the way, in our course, we have about 40 documents that we provide to the people that take our course. Many of which Katrina created, some of which Emily Orem created, some of which I've created. And so people get a lot of tools. Stephanie, you've asked great questions, and I'm wondering, is there one takeaway you'd be willing to share that stands out for you?
I love the way that you're giving language to, I feel like it's bringing into consciousness, some of the distinctions. So I loved how you are just being able to, I'd love to look closer at those documents. I don't know if it's an option to share links to them, but I love what you're talking about of being present to our needs and the needs of others. Something that I would wonder about is, do you have advice on how to elicit that in a way that's really loving and not leading, not coming with an energy of and I want to be respectful. Eliza, the example that you shared, I can imagine. So I'm just, if I were in that position, I feel like I might feel uncomfortable in that kind of position. So I'm just wondering, can you well, you already just did. You shared an example of how to offer, but I like the idea of, how can I ask, what are you needing, without just finding other language to ask it in a way that's like maybe not confrontational.
Yeah.
But really caring.
It depends, of course, on the person and the culture and the language that they use. One thing I suggest when this question comes up is to kind of assess, are you talking to somebody who's more introverted or someone who's more extroverted? If it's someone who is extroverted, I'll ask, hey, what are you really longing for? What are you needing right now? What's your values? And I'll be careful with using the word need, because a lot of people have been shamed for being too needy. Needy is a really shameful, judgment. So I'll sometimes say, hey, what are you longing for? What would you like right now? What's your heart longing for? I'll try and make it as much of an invitation to know what's going on with them. If it's someone who's more introverted, then I'm more likely to say, I'm imagining, I could be wrong, but I'm imagining that right now you might be are you feeling shy? Are you longing for a little more connection? I'll guess, and I'll make it very clear that I'm guessing, that I'm imagining. And I'm imagining because I care and I want to understand them. And I might even say those words. I'm imagining that because I care about you. And I want to understand and know what's going on with you right now. So the key is to be curious with an open heart and an open mind. Not to be in I know this is what's going on with you. That's like, none of us like hearing that, right? But when somebody shows care, and I guess that's the big thing. Whatever it is, how can we demonstrate care in our languaging, right? As opposed to demonstrating from our head, this is what I believe, and I want you to know that. I want to know you. I want to care about you. I want you to know that I care about you. And if you are interacting with somebody and you authentically don't care about them, then you maybe need to do some homework or some self-reflection on what is your relationship to this person. Can you reestablish and find the care? Or are you in a relationship that's not mutual or isn't worthy of your time anymore? And that's okay too. That's a different kind of setting of a boundary. Katrina, anything you'd like to add or share or go towards?
Well, I think that you shared that in a beautiful way. You had asked about being able to see those resources. And so I wanted to let you know that I'm going to put them in the chat when I have an opportunity to do that. So you'll have access to that on a Google Drive. You can download it and print it and share it. And I'll also make sure to post them to the Facebook Live comment feed so that people who are watching on Facebook have access to those. Some of them might be included in the documents that Scott just gave a link to, but maybe not all of them. So I want to make sure that you have those. And then the other thing is, I mean, again, I had shared the story before about how I worked with my son using the card set. And so these are the cards, and the idea is to create a world of win-wins. And so this is what's really helped me to be able to do the kind of practice or have the communication that Scott was talking about, where I could make guesses and weave needs into a conversation so that that needs awareness just grows every time I'm having a conversation with someone. It starts to plant seeds, and they become more aware of, oh yeah, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm longing for. This is what I value. So that's one of the ways that I like to bring that awareness into the field.
We're going to answer a couple more questions. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you very, very much. Great questions. It's good to see you. Yeah, big heart back to you too. Just a reminder that if any of you are interested in taking this course, Katrina and I are going to be teaching it along with a couple of other love coaches. Trish Wright and Jessica Osterday will be also doing some of the classes, and Teresa will be there. It's on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern. It's a 2-hour class, and then Anna Prabha, a wonderful love coach, leads an after-class conversation, and that's optional. There's also an optional empathy practice group every Wednesday night, and that's at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern. And that's where we just practice giving and receiving empathy. And if you've had a hard time and you just need to be well-loved, you come to the class and you get well-loved. If you're wanting to practice how to really give quality empathy, it's a beautiful class. And I find that I've been doing this for many years. That usually about half the people come to the empathy practice group and half the people don't, and that's okay. It is optional. If any of you are sincerely interested in taking the course, you can get a lot of the details by going to lcamasterclass.com. lcamasterclass.com, and I'll bring it up on the computer here. And there's a lot of course, information there. And you can take a look at what the course is. And there's a pretty elaborate course outline. And so this shows you what our objectives are going to be and what we're going to be doing each week. And a lot of this is really self-reflection oriented. It's very much about learning ourselves. You're going to get to know yourself really, really well during this course. And then you learn the tools that help you in your relationships with others. So this is all at lcamasterclass.com. And then if you are sincerely interested, Katrina and I are offering a free 15 to 20 minute consultation by phone or Zoom with people who really they're pretty close to wanting to do it, but they have some questions. And so we will happily answer those questions. And if you go again to the website and you go to, where is it? If you go to where it says book a free session, really simple. Just click there, give us your name, email address, and phone number, and Katrina or myself will get back to you. So we're going to ask a couple more questions, but I just wanted to make sure that that was in there. Katrina, we have questions.
All right.
This is a good one. This is from Jeffrey Colebrook. Jeffrey is also a wonderful Global Peace Tribe regular. Loveolution is the answer, as Jeffrey always says. I'll bring Katrina up. And we're probably actually going to go to that very point, actually, Jeffrey. But the question is this. I have a friend that is a Trumper. Any advice on handling the intense political diversity that we're experiencing? And yeah, that's a great question. We've done entire shows, by the way, on this. We've done entire Global Peace Tribe shows. I've done ones with Katrina and ones with Louisa Stowe. I'll let Katrina go.
I just have to say, Scott, you do a marvelous job with the Global Peace Tribe handling this situation all the time.
Oh, thank
But
you.
sometimes one-on-one when you're, it's, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for asking. It's a great question. I'll let Katrina answer it first, but we can keep you on camera with us.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Jeffrey. I think, Scott, I think you just lost Jeffrey and I on the camera, by the way. So it's just
Okay.
you.
Okay.
All right. Yes. Big question. The polarization is ridiculous. And I think one of the pieces when I'm looking at it that I keep reminding myself is that our news channels right now are designed in a way that keep us very separated. There's not a whole lot of intelligent debate that's happening across the aisle on much of any topic. It's more like, I'm this team, well, I'm that team, and rawr, that's basically what's going on. And so I have, when I'm around somebody who has a different belief system than me on one of these many polarized topics, Trump being one of the polarized topics, there's people who absolutely love him, believe he's the best thing in the world. And there's people who are absolutely the opposite and terribly frightened of him. I don't find that it's helpful to argue or debate or to try and pull out facts to try and change anybody's mind. There's just, you have this person for a small bit of time and they have all of their friends and all of their community and all of their news the rest of the time. And I could flip the tables, right? This could be somebody who loves Trump and thinks that Biden's horrible. I would say the exact same thing, that trying to change each other's mind, it's usually not going to go anywhere. And so my question would be, what is the quality of connection you would like to have with this person? And if you're noticing that talking politics is taking you away from that quality of connection, then acknowledge that and say, I love you and I have so loved engaging in politics in the past. Maybe that's been true for you. And this is just such a difficult topic for me. I so value our connection. I'd rather not get caught up in this particular topic because I really want to maintain a sense of love and care and connection with you. Would that be okay with you? And I'm curious how that lands for you.
Yeah, well, that does. And I have, in this particular case, we have other spiritual connections, which are wonderful. And I try to, I work on non-duality and, in all these areas, sometimes the friend will lead the conversation into these areas in discussion, and I end up feeling I have to try to defend my even my neutrality point, that because it can get negative. I mean, even another friend of mine was having a conversation and they were just talking so hateful, like, Biden's horrible. And the vice president, she's a whore. I mean, just really horrible things.
Yeah. Yeah, this is reminding me of what Scott had said earlier about the boundaries with compassion. If you notice that you're starting to feel defensive, that means that you've gotten triggered and you've lost your center.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
It's a signal. It's time for some boundaries with compassion. And it might be, hey, this conversation isn't working for me. Can we change the topic? And if they don't want to change the topic, then say, okay, see you later. Because, if somebody's in a topic that's really not going to work for you, there's a certain amount of just needing to tune into your body and say, is it worth being here right now or not? Yeah. But I can understand it can be hard to notice that quick enough to set a boundary compassionately with love and care and respect, as opposed to falling into these mechanisms of defensiveness or wanting to convince somebody of something that's a little different than where they're at, or a lot different than when they're at. So
for a little.
Yeah, yes, a lot in the case that you had described. But you try to find a neutral point, and that doesn't work either. And so then it's like, okay, this conversation it's just not working. And can you do that sandwich of compassion and boundaries? Or do you need to excuse yourself?
That's absolutely right on. And I want to add one thing. Let's go back and pretend it is somebody that you're having a reasonable conversation with. They're not, going off the rails. Get off. What I suggest, one way to come back into connection with that person is to leave the part of the conversation about what Biden or Trump is or doing wrong, and get in touch with what are the values that reflects. Again, if we perceive that somebody is being dishonest, we take the focus away from he's so dishonest and bring it back to, wow, you have a strong value for honesty, right? He's so irresponsible. Oh, responsibility is really important to you. We bring it back to the values that are unmet and the beauty of this. And the more angry someone gets, right? Like even the person who's being vicious, you either set the boundary, which is probably what you need to do, which Katrina said. But if you think you can get through, bypass that it's not about Trump or Putin or Biden. It's about those values that aren't being met.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I went to is trying to say what my values were, rather than political, just what values I honor. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for coming on, and great question that I'm sure.
Well, we know the solution. Love-evolution is the solution.
Love-evolution is the solution. Love-evolution is the solution. And Jeffrey, I will put into the chat box before we end a link to a show that I did where we did an entire 90 minutes on Straight Talk back in last year about this.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think this will probably be our last question, unless something comes in from Unify. Actually, we do have two questions now. One is, I have a question in regards to how to use NVC with a person who has narcissistic personality disorder, or any personality disorder for that matter. Holding to empathy in ourselves, yes, but how to use it with someone who does not feel empathy. Do you want to tackle that one first, Katrina?
I guess the first question I would ask is, do they have an actual diagnosis by a licensed psychiatrist to have narcissistic personality disorder? Because I've seen this diagnosis thrown around a lot in casual circles and tossed on all kinds of people who are not narcissistic. They're just having a hard time, communicating in a way that meets our values for love and compassion. So that's the first piece that comes up for me when I hear this question, and I'm curious if the person who posed it knows if this is actually a psychiatric evaluation, or whether it's just their best guess based on their experience And if it's just your experience, then rather than working with the diagnosis or evaluation, I'd be interested in understanding what was the actual experience that you had that's challenging for you. Maybe we could work with one specific example. One of the sheets that I had put up earlier was showing the difference between jackal and giraffe. And some diagnoses can be helpful because they help us to work with the situation to serve life. And oftentimes diagnosis and evaluation can be a way to put somebody in a box and say that they're a problem, and then to deal with them as a problem instead of as a human being who's just doing the best they can with what they have, with whatever resources and knowledge they have at the time. So I'm wondering if the person who asked that question might be able to say something more about it. And if not, I don't know that I would be comfortable answering the question, but I imagine Scott might have something to share with you.
Yeah, so I'm waiting to see. I see that that person's still with us. So do you want us to bring you on camera, or do you want to write an answer? If on camera's okay, give me a thumbs up. Okay, here we go. Hi.
Hey there. Thank you for taking the question. So I would, throughout my life, I have, grown up with people with personality disorders and found myself in relationships with people with personality disorders, yes, diagnosed. Regardless of this, particular situation, I'm curious in general, when you're dealing with somebody with a personality disorder, which is a very real thing, and these were very real situations that I've personally been in and have studied NVC a very long time. How do you use that in a situation like that? Like, what is I don't know if you guys have experience. That's a totally different domain than what you're
Yeah,
usually
no.
It's rare.
It's a great question, and I do have a response.
Great.
You got to give yourself a lot of empathy. And as Marshall Rosenberg taught, the most important form of empathy is self-empathy. And there's a wonderful little practice, which is how to give yourself an emergency dose of self-empathy. And I'll take you through those steps. But I do want to say that when you are dealing with somebody who has a genuine borderline personality disorder or NPD, yeah, I mean, that's very hard. And because you're not dealing with somebody who's rational or reasonable. There's a great quote by George Bernard Shaw that goes, "The reasonable person adapts to the world around him or her. The unreasonable person makes the world adapt to them. Therefore, we are at the mercy of unreasonable people."
Yep.
And that's a painful truth when you're dealing with somebody like that. So that being said, here is the practice for giving yourself an emergency dose of self-empathy. So we'll just say this person's name is Joe. And Joe comes into your field, comes into your orbit, and Joe's doing Joe. And it's unpleasant. And so these are the steps, and all of this goes on inside your own brain. None of this is what you say to Joe. This is all where you're going, to Joe. This is what's going on in your brain. What am I telling myself? Just start right off that. And just one sentence. So let's stay with one sentence. What am I telling myself? Oh, geez, I don't want to deal with Joe right now. Oh, God, Joe's going at it again. Oh, my God, Joe is such a narcissist. Whatever it is, you acknowledge that first judgment, that first projection. You acknowledge it, but you don't stay there. You acknowledge it, and then you go deeper. What am I feeling? I'm frustrated. I'm concerned. I'm anxious. I'm angry. I'm whatever it is. You acknowledge what you're feeling, and you feel it for a moment. You acknowledge your feelings. Underneath all of our feelings are needs that are not being met or that are being threatened. What am I needing right now? I'm needing harmony. I'm needing safety. I'm needing connection. I'm needing mutuality, whatever it may be. Probably safety is the most likely one. I'm guessing maybe harmony. So you get in touch with those things. I really am needing safety. I'm really needing harmony. Then you got to ask, am I safe? Am I physically safe? If you're not safe, you need to extricate yourself. Anytime we're not safe, what do I need to do to be safe? Right? But let's assume that you've decided that you're safe. Then you ask yourself the final question. Can my care for Joe supersede my discomfort? Can my care for Joe in this moment supersede my discomfort? And it's okay if the answer is no. If the answer is no, then you need to extricate yourself. If the answer is no, don't stay there. Find a pleasant way to remove yourself. Or as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say, run, Luke, run! But if the genuine answer is, you know what, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I do love Joe, or I care about Joe, and I'm okay, I can handle this right now. But don't be a martyr. Don't stretch beyond you got to be really real with that question. Can I authentically care despite my discomfort? And that's the tip that I would give. And that's a tip for anybody, anytime. I mean, it doesn't have to be somebody who has NPD. It might be you walk in and, your spouse is throwing a hissy fit, or whatever it might be. So is that helpful?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. We have another question. This is coming from somebody on Unify. And it's somebody who is in the South, and she wants to teach compassionate communication, and people have never heard of it. They've never heard of NVC. And she wants to know how to introduce it in a way where she's not seen as some weird California hippie chick. Katrina, do you want to tackle that one?
I got distracted by a message in chat, so I didn't hear the question. I just found out that somebody in our Zoom room has a CD full of pictures of my son at Disneyland from years ago. And then,
well, that's fun.
So, I would need to be re-present to the question. Otherwise, you could go for it.
The question is somebody who has taken our class, who teaches compassionate communication, recently moved to the South, wants to teach it there, but finds that people are very resistant and have never heard of it, and how to present it in a way that's not California hippie chick, new age, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Well, goodness, there's an introductory workshop that I lead, and I have I've led it in Arizona through to the West Coast. So I haven't been in that area, but I'm imagining it would still work. And basically, the way I teach it is that I share with people what non-empathy is. What are the ways in which we disconnect from each other habitually? So it might be that we, when somebody shares a complaint with us, we might give them advice. We might evaluate them, advice. So, if somebody says, oh, my boss is just so difficult to deal with, advice might be, well, why don't you go to the person over your boss and talk to them? Or we might evaluate them in some way, or we might tell our own story that kind of takes attention away from them. There's about 14 of these habits that we commonly do that create disconnection. So there's an exercise that I do with people where I give them a list of what I call non-empathic responses. And I have them walk around and they share complaints and they respond with non-empathic responses. So you get a really visceral experience of what it's like to receive that. And you also get to kind of laugh at yourself and self-reflect because it's very familiar. It's like, oh yeah, I've done that a lot. So first you go through that kind of uncomfortable space of looking at what empathy is not, these non-empathic responses. And then after that, I bring them through an exercise of practicing what is empathy. You can do that with feelings and needs lists. Of course, I use the cards for that. And so I've got the feelings and the needs cards in here. And in that case, I'll do a demonstration where I have somebody who is willing to just tell a story of something difficult that happened to them. And I'll set the timer for somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes, depending on the length of time I have with the group. And everybody is just instructed to just listen with their heart open to this story that another person tells of some kind of pain they're in, some difficult situation they've gone through. And then I pass around these cards to everybody in the room. So everybody's got a small set of feelings and needs cards. And then I will ask them to guess what that person might have been feeling from that story. And so they'll look at the cards that they have in their hand. And if they have a card that feels resonant or more than one card that feels resonant, then they'll walk up and they'll present the card to the person. I imagine that you felt embarrassed. Imagine you felt surprised. I imagine you felt hurt. And they lay the cards down in front of the person. And then they'll do the same thing with the needs cards. And I consistently find that this practice is something that is deeply moving for people. It's a short workshop. It's very transformational. Most everybody who takes it gets hooked. Like, what is this? And I want more. So that's the best strategy that I have. And I know Scott's got all kinds of tricks up his sleeve because he's definitely, he's taught just about everywhere. So I'd love to hear some of your ideas, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I think where you went with it was a good place. Is find, ask what's a relationship in your life that you'd like to have improvement of, or what's a situation in your life that's difficult, and then listen with empathy first. Remember, in Love Coach Academy, we always teach empathy first. Don't jump to fixing. Don't jump to telling them what to do. Empathize with the challenge that they're in. And then ask, can I offer one possible tip or trick that I use in a situation like that? And it's always good to put it that way, like, this is what I do. It doesn't have to be, this is the way to do it, this is what's better, this is what I do. Would you like to hear it? And ask permission first to share your tip, to share your tool. And then go ahead and share an example of compassionate communication. That's why I had, how did we start tonight? I started with Katrina telling her story. And then after she told her story, I told a story. So telling stories, success stories, is a wonderful way to introduce compassionate communication to other people. Somebody had asked, going back to if my need, if after doing the self-empathy emergency dose, we determined that, nope, my care for Joe I can't do it right now. How to handle that. And so I'm glad that you asked. Thank you. A wonderful line, and I even use this as a coach, even people that I'm coaching, I'll say, I'm noticing that I can't give you the quality of care that you're looking for right now. Or I can't give you the quality of care that you'd like to have right now. And it's never because there's something wrong with them. It's always about what I need. I'm too tired. I'm too hungry. I have to, whatever it is, I make it about me. And I can't give you the quality of love or the quality of care or the quality of connection or the quality of listening that I think you would like and that I would like to be able to give you. I can't do it right now. I'm too hungry. And if it's because you're in a difficult situation with them, I'm too triggered. I need to go get centered. I need to go get a sandwich. I need to go to the bathroom. Whatever it is, you make it about what I need to do for myself. But again, give them authentic reassurance that you care. I do care about you. I just can't give you what you need right now, but I do care. And if they're angry and if they're sad, take a minute, acknowledge the anger, acknowledge the sadness. Don't make them wrong for being sad or angry. It's okay. That's part of life. I'm making a choice, and the choice has the consequence that you're pissed, or you're disappointed, or you're frustrated, and that's okay. and I still need to honor my choice as well. We try and weave back and forth between taking care of ourselves and acknowledging the other. And notice I'm not even saying taking care of the other, just acknowledging the other. By the way, a funny story about that. I've been teaching the emergency dose of self-empathy for probably 15 years. I used to use the word trump. I used to say, after you've done the process, can my care for this person trump my, my discomfort? And then there was a certain person who ran for office and was elected and had to find another word. And I came up with supersede as the word, but for a little while there was a problem. I need to wrap up. I've got clients at 9 o'clock and I still need to make dinner. So I'm going to bring Katrina back on, and thank you everybody for watching. And I sure hope some of you will join our class. It's great. We build a beautiful community. It's a beautiful container. All the classes are recorded. So if you miss a class, no problem. We send you the recording. And it's going to be really, really wonderful. And I'm excited to be teaching again and seeing people like Teresa and Elizabeth and Jeffrey coming in, and a lot of
We
Karen
have a lot of
Eisenberg.
people returning who have done this, some of them have done this several times before, and they're like, I want to do it again. I just love the course. And there really is, there's such a sense of family that builds in this course. It's beautiful. And there's so many long-term friendships that come out of people doing this course together. So we really celebrate the energy that we get to create together, and would love to have you aboard. Again, if you have any questions, or whether it's about the course or even just something in your life that's really going on, Scott and I are here. Feel free to contact us if you want to have one of these mini sessions. We're absolutely here. We're so glad you could join us this evening.
Thank you everybody for watching, and anybody watching the recording also, because this will live on my on some of my Facebook pages. So thank you. Hope to see you on Saturday, or talk to you before then. Thank you, Katrina. I love you so much. I love teaching with you.
I love you too, Scott.
And it's kind of fun merging Love Coach Academy, my Love Coach Academy world, with the Global Peace Tribe world.
Mhm.
And we've got a lot of Global Peace Tribers and a lot of Love Coach Academy people. And so my inner bee is cross-pollinating the flowers, and I'm very excited. So anyway, thank you, Karen. Stan Sparrow is here. Hello, Stan. Mary, Chic, everybody. Thank you for being with us, and hopefully